Alright, as all of you know, I don't really like the Wii U. However, during that period, there was one positive thing that came out of it. Super Mario Maker. This was a great game and filled to the brim with content. However, what would a sequel on the Nintendo Switch look like? Well, let's find out. Now, the first Super Mario Maker was announced at E3 2014, and the concept was to create and share your own 2D Super Mario levels that you built. In terms of styles, there were 4: Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, and New Super Mario Bros. U, with a bunch of different themes seen in those games. Besides that, there were a couple of special modes like 10 Mario Challenge, Course World, and the 100 Mario Challenge. In these, you mostly play a certain amount of levels with a limited amount of lives, and you can choose from multiple difficulties. Now, the game was built around the fan-made levels. Everything makes use of it, and if you're not playing, then you're making. People freaking loved this game and had dreams of this for years. Just look at the ROM hack community. Now, as you could imagine, it didn't live up to its full potential on a console like the Nintendo Wii U. It only sold 13.5 million units after all. Sure, later on it appeared on the 3DS as well, but it was already kind of late in the console's life cycle. Regardless of this, they still sold more than 7 million copies, which is quite impressive for the circumstances. So with it reaching such a small audience and having an enormous potential, a lot more than 7 million, I expect them to make a second one. However, could all of this even work on the Nintendo Switch? The Wii U and 3DS were quite different after all. If you look at the game, there's one thing that could be a problem on the Switch: the level making process. Because both in the Wii U and 3DS version, you have a touchscreen of sorts all the time to drag and drop stuff in your level. And the Switch is a completely different device after all. It has 2 different modes: handheld and docked. In the first mode, creating levels wouldn't be any different. It would even be better to an extent, because the Switch has the best touchscreen out of all of them. However, as soon as you want to play on the big screen, it all becomes a bit more difficult. They would have to add in a way to select items using the analog stick. This is quite easy to implement, but it would be a lot slower than a touchscreen. Sadly enough, Nintendo can't do anything about this. So while it wouldn't break the game, it could be very annoying. Now that's the only problem for the Switch really. Besides that, it would only add bonuses like the ability to play handheld and still being able to share levels. Besides that, you would have the complete experience both on the go and at home, which the 3DS and Wii U didn't really offer. This is something a lot of people complained about, and rightfully so. The 3DS experience was more a single-player one. Now with the new entry, you always want to add more elements in the game, and I think Nintendo could do some really cool things here. One that comes to mind right away is the 2D section seen in the new Super Mario Odyssey. Here there are semi-2D parts where you go into a pipe and end up on a wall as an 8-bit Mario. This is used to either progress or get a moon. Now these stages are really cool because they're kind of 3D. You're up against the wall after all, and move along it. It kind of reminds me of Fez. This is a puzzle platformer where you play as Gomez, who lives in a world that he believed to be 2D, until he is granted a Fez, the ability to see the world in 3D. Here you have a similar kind of deal with the whole world turning, which also happens in Odyssey when you go around a corner of a wall. With this you can do even more cool level designs, so adding this to a second Mario Maker game for the Switch would be genius. The only problem Nintendo would face is the 3D shapes you need to work with to create the different sides of the walls, but this can be solved quite easily. The levels using this seen in Super Mario Odyssey only use some of the possible assets, so putting this in the game with all the new assets that aren't normally seen in these sections could make for a completely different experience. The art style also looks different from any of the others seen in the previous game, so this one would still stand out and be special. Now there are also 2 kinds of modes they could add from the new main series game that would completely change how you would approach a level. First up, Music Note Mode. Here you first have to find the start of the note road. After that you have to follow it all the way to the end, and if you make it in time, you win. Along the way, you could add all kinds of obstacles to dodge, and as you know, you need to get all the notes in a certain amount of time, adding pressure to the whole scenario. This would make them a lot less linear and add a whole new twist to the levels, something we have never seen in the classic 2D side-scroller format. Now there's also another possible mode that could introduce some cool elements from Super Mario Odyssey to Mario Maker, the Moon Mode. Here you need to go through a level and look for a power moon. When you find it, you win. This could add some classic Odyssey elements like exploration, puzzles, and specialized challenges. Just like the notes, it could change the player's mindset completely, and this also goes for the maker, who gets a lot more options now. Now one last thing I expect to see in a Super Mario Maker Switch is a co-op mode that makes use of the 2 Joy-Cons. In older titles we also had a 2-player mode. In these, Mario is controlled by player 1 and Luigi is controlled by player 2. If Mario loses a life or completes a level in 2-player mode, Luigi comes into play until he does the same. And the two may also share extra lives on the world map. Now if they would only add this to a Switch version, then it would be kinda basic. They can certainly do more with this. They could always put in modes seen in other more modern 2D games, like the co-op scene in New Super Mario Bros. 2. They could add stuff like Coin Rush mode. This is a time attack-esque mode that challenges the player to collect as many coins as they can in 3 random selected single-player levels without losing a life. Besides that, they could come up with a ton of other possible modes that could completely change the game. Maybe even a 2-player mode of Find the Moon. The first one to locate it and get it wins. Although this would be difficult to pull off in a huge level, so they would have to be rather small. And with the easy setup of the Joy-Cons, you can jump in a quick game of Coin Rush or do a couple of fan-made levels together. The great thing about this as well is that the content will be endless. It's user-made after all. So if they would put in an online mode to play with friends as well, it could become a great game for a long time. Just like Mario Kart. It would even be possible to allow up to 4 players all completing the level together, similar to the new Super Mario Bros. Games for the Wii and Wii U. Now, would Nintendo ever make a new Mario Maker? Who knows? It has been 4 years since the release of the first one, and they have been silent about a sequel ever since. Personally, I hope they make another one. The concept is genius, and clearly didn't reach enough people. So I will just pray that one day it will make a glorious comeback on the Nintendo Switch. Thanks for watching everybody, I hope you enjoyed. If you want to watch more, then click those annotations. Be sure to subscribe, click the bell, donate on PayPal, support me on Patreon, buy my t-shirts.